I have about 4 corset patterns that I use most of all, and they differ in style slightly. So I thought the first one I'd show you is the one that I've used the most, and it's the one that I first started using, and it's a truly Victorian 1880s late Victorian corset, so TV110. It doesn't actually have a picture on it because it's pretty much a printout, but it does have the corset pattern in so many different sizes, and it's definitely worth making sure that you get the correct size, because the first time I did this I cut out the wrong size. It ended up way too small and I couldn't wear it because it was just so tight. It wasn't correct. So you really do need to pay attention to the fitting of a corset, and it comes with the directions and the sizes for your body. Yeah, make sure that you do get the right size. This still stands as my favourite corset pattern. It's a Victorian style. It's very, very adaptable. It's incredibly adaptable because it is quite simple in its make, and I also like the way that you make the channels with this pattern, so I'll go through that a little bit later on. Next up are the more modern patterns, and it is the Butterick B6338, and this is a cupped corset. It's got a very different style, scoop at the front, different lace options. It's a bit more what I would call fairy corset, so costume corset, medieval sort of thing. Adaptable in really it's in the fabric uses, less so in the actual construction of the corset, but still not a bad pattern. Next up is another costume pattern, and it's McCall's M7306. I've used this one a couple of times. Again, it's another cupped corset. 3 different corset styles, so we have a non-cupped corset, an underbust, half cup, and then a full cup. It's got a point at the front. Also comes with different patterns for hoop skirts, shorts, and a crown, and a neck thing. I'm not sure what you call that actually. Collar. It's a collar. This is quite an embellished, or the pattern is quite an embellished pattern. You can strip that right back, don't have to have them if you don't want to, and it is slightly adjustable in its design, much more than the Butterick one. And the last pattern that I have it's not actually a corset pattern, but I've adapted it so it looks something like a corset, and that's the Rose Cafe pattern. It's actually a dress pattern. It's a cupped top pattern. It's got a zip on the back, but I've adapted it to take away the zip and actually made it into a corset. It's a very nice pattern. I'd say it's more intermediate to advanced than easy. All corset patterns really are a little bit more on the difficult side. I mean, look what you've got to work with. But they are really nice. This is a lovely pattern to use, and it's more modern in design as well than all the ones I've mentioned before. So it does depend on what your pattern requires if you are making a more corset than the bustier one. So we're going to focus on the truly Victorian and also the McCall's costume. So if 2 of them, Victorian one and the McCall's costume, both use busts on the front, and they are like hook busts. You can get them in different sizes, so I have 3 sizes. I haven't measured them, I've just got them out of the box. So there's 3 different sizes there, big, medium and small. That one I'd say you'd want to use more for the bust. You need to make sure that you do get the correct size of bust for your pattern. These are ones I've just had in store. So that's a shorter one, use for underbust or a shorter corset. Longer ones more for the full length. So the Victorian corset, this is probably the better one to use, or better length to use, and then that one is just the mid-size one. So these have metal studs and metal hooks, and what you do is they fit on over top like that. So you've got the lace on the back, and this is the front opening. So if you're putting on your corset, you wrap it around your back, you fasten up the front, and then you lace at the back. So it just makes it so much easier to get on and off. I mean, if if you've got a corset that doesn't have a front opening, you've got to pull it over your head, get someone else to lace it up, because there's no way you can be able to do that yourself. But this does make it a lot more easier. My last video we went through some corset stays, so I won't mention too much about that in this one. Just quickly, you've got flat steel boning, spiral steel boning and wriggling, which is a plastic boning. Check on your pattern, but for the Victorian pattern it's flat steel and it's spiral steel boning. You'll also need eyelets. Eyelets you can get, which is the metal eyelets, or you could sew them in by hand. Metal eyelets, of course, you got to get right. I've waited so many trying to put them in and they haven't gone right. So you definitely need to practice these eyelets, because you do also need the correct tools, which is probably why I've wasted quite a few of them, because I'm unsure which size is which. But you'll need a hole puncher. So this punches the holes in the fabric for you to put the eyelets through. And then you'll also need the eyelet closey thing, pliers, and this will close the eyelets together. Those are the two tools that you need for the eyelets. Of course, if you're sewing them in by hand, so much easier. Check out the buttonhole stitch. That's what you'll use for eyelets. It might be worth, also if you are sewing them in by hand, is to get some thin wire, wrap it into a circle, place that over your eyelet, and then sew over top that just to give it a little bit of support. And you will need corsetry lacing. Now you can use ribbon. I'd suggest using strong ribbon, or you can use proper corsetry lacing, and basically it's just kind of like flat shoelace. You can get in different colours, and yeah, so you need quite a bit of this if you're doing the full Victorian corset, and actually the other one, I think it's got lace on the back. Yeah, the McCall's and the Butterick, so you'll need lacing for that, and you'll need the eyelets, of course. And of course, if you're making a corset with that's cut or has underwires, you will need your underwire. So you get these in different sizes, you get them for whatever size you're making, and you'll also probably need underwire casing. You can buy underwire casing, you can make it if you want to, probably just easier just to buy it, it's quite cheap. And then you of course put these into the cups of the pattern, and that will give you support. Corset fabric, so bearing in mind corsets are there for strength and structure and support, so you're not going to want to use materials like chiffon, organza or anything like that, because you're going to need something that's going to hold up to some tension. So think more medium weight to heavier weight. Think of linens, coutil, that's generally the one that people go to first with corsets. Cotton, drill, twill, there's another one I thought of a minute ago, but those types of materials that are heavier, much more sturdy, going to hold up to some structure, they're the ones that you want to be using for a corset. If you want to use a more lightweight to medium weight material, then think about backing it with some sort of interfacing. Sewing interfacing, if it's not going to show, iron-on interfacing. But if you think it's going to need some support, then give it some support, because you don't want the material to be put in funny different ways and it end up just looking really bad. So yeah. So that's taking you through some corsetry fabrics, some patterns and some equipment. Thank you very much for watching. If you have any questions, pop them in the comment section below, like and subscribe to my channel, and I will see you next time.